Welcome to Cinemophile, where we bring you the best in independent, documentary, and foreign films, and we talk to the people who made them. I'm your host, Mike Caspar, and you can find out more about the program by going to cinemophilepod.com. For over a decade, Dr. Steve Boys, conservation biologist and National Geographic Explorer, has been in search of a mysterious, elusive herd of ghost elephants in the highlands of Angola, deep within its forest. It's just a remarkable film called Ghost Elephants. He worked in partnership with Werner Herzog, the amazing Werner Herzog, known for Grizzly Man, Fitzcarraldo. It's too many to mention. He's an amazing filmmaker, and what a force of nature this man has been throughout his life. Steve Boys, welcome to Cinemophile.
Thanks so much, Mike.
Thank you. We see it in the film, but let's go back to what prompted this journey, this adventure that you embarked upon.
Angola was always seen as the impossible place to go. It was locked off from the world for 27 years during the Civil War. It was in the end of 2014, just over 10 years ago, going into 2015, that we snuck into the country as tourists. We managed to meet the governor of that province in an audience with him. And he introduced us to the Halo Trust. It's a humanitarian landmine clearance organization. We got armored vehicles, police helicopters in support, but they couldn't get out to us. It took us 6 months from the south, from the west, and then from the north, we managed to get through two active minefields to the source, these source lakes where the elephants ended up being. And there we launched dugout canoes, traditional dugout canoes called mokoros. And we did 4 months. We paddled across the Okavango Basin. 121 days nonstop, 1,500 miles. And it was in the first month, we still haven't seen any people at all. We would stop at the end of the day and I would run up into the hills and try and find trails, whistle, scream, just trying to find people. And on one of these runs, I'd go like 10 miles sometimes until dark and come back in the dark. And I found this clearing, and there was 2 big elephant dungs there, and it was a bull elephant had done this. And I recognized it as an elephant garden from the Okavango Delta downstream. And these gardens are where an old bull, he doesn't migrate, doesn't move much, he has his territory. He'll break all the trees, open a clearing, and break them so that they start growing from the bottom, so young elephants can feed from them. Because what he's hoping is that the breeding herds, when they come moving through, they'll stop at his wonderful garden and interact with him. So I could feel that loneliness. He wasn't there. He hadn't been there for a week, but there were elephants. I still hadn't found people, but I found signs of elephant. And that began this journey on fat tire mountain bikes, on foot, on motorbikes. We explored all of the rivers from their sources all the way down through this area where these ghost elephants were. The kings, the vice kings, the chiefs told us, and the hunters, these ghosts are down there. We could find dung. It was always really old. They just said you have to live down there if you want to see these elephants. We put 180 camera traps out, motion sensing, heat sensing, trail cams, microphones, hundreds of them, these acoustic sensors. So you're listening for them, nothing. You'd be on a fat tire mountain bike, and you'd smell elephants. You just can't hear or see. It's just like they must be a. And it was after 7 years. I was driving in Cape Town, and I had to pull over. Curlin, who you see in the film, he was sending me these messages with photographs of elephants at night. It was like, these shining eyes in the background. I was like, oh, there they are. They're the ghost elephants, our first pictures. And it was at that time that I was meeting Werner socially as a friend. And it was just this point of activation. We started living in the homesteads of the master trackers. We needed their help, but we wanted to get to know them first as friends and family. And that process started when we got those first photos.
Let's put some perspective. We talked about Angola. What is this area? It's unimaginable how huge of an area. I don't think we truly appreciate the size of Africa. We generally seem to, in maps even, diminish the size and scope of it. But let's talk about just the area that we're talking about in Angola.
Africa is not just a little bit bigger than Greenland. It's like many, 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 many times bigger than that. It's a vast continent. Angola is one of our bigger countries. The eastern part of Angola, these eastern Angolan highlands, were known for 500 years by the Portuguese explorers and traders as the Terra de Fin de Mundo, the land at the end of the earth. It was the farthest place from anywhere. It was a wilderness that you just do not go, you do not traverse. All the famous explorers, Cameron, David Livingstone, Serpa Pinto, Silva Porto, all these names in history, they avoided this place. And they were told by local hunters and kings, it's just there's too many rivers. It's impossible to traverse. If you go in there, you'll never be seen again. And I've always found in my explorations across Africa that when someone says that to you, it means the landscape, the forests, the source lakes that we were eventually to find are sacred to the local people. Even when we went to the Library of Congress and looked at West Africa and Angola, and we found 50 maps, it was the rivers didn't appear until the 1800s. Okay, so we got maps from the 15, 1600s. It's a nothing, nothing, nothing. And it's only in 1950 that we start seeing rivers are going the wrong direction and it's all wrong. And then only in the 1950s and the 1960s, we see the rivers appear as we know them today with the correct name. So people know the rivers are there, but still no source lakes. And then the country shuts down with the War of Independence in 1961 and no more maps. It is a place of mystery. It is bigger than 25% bigger than the whole of England, as Werner says in the film. It is the largest intact Miombo woodland, subtropical forest in Africa. It's a very easy place to get lost. I mean, really.
And have some terrible things happen to you along the way as well, as we see in the film. Where does Werner Herzog come into the equation in this story?
Like Werner, I get introduced to him in a strangest place in the world, a restaurant in Beverly Hills. And we talk about the meaning of life and kind of where the thoughts come from and experiences of loneliness and things. And we really get along. And the restaurant kind of closes. We end off talking about the ghost elephants a little bit and about the work. But I get these photographs. We start, my friendship with Van is growing. Now basically say to him, like, we're going. Like, now I'm working with the Junkwasi, the master trackers. And he's like, oh, this is interesting. And then I invite him to join us in Namibia. And he joins like open mind. We got the full film crew, we got everything ready. And as soon as he meets Tui, the master tracker that he
Yeah.
main star in the film, he starts filming the moment he leaves the vehicle and they just connect. And that was on day two. And from that point forward, Werner was just like locked in. And it's like the energy just goes up. Okay. We're planning an expedition. We're busy packing cars and preparing people and staying with families and we're doing, the normal things that people would do planning a large scale expedition. And then you spend a portion of each day with Werner and he starts interviewing us individually. This is not in the film. He asks, what would a world without elephants be like? And then each of us answer that differently and individually. And then he would ask, well, do you dream? Okay, what do you dream of? He's starting to kind of shift in our mode of thought into one that is more dreamscape, more reflective on why and what we're doing. And that's across every character in the film and all of us. And that's what we carry into Angola, and it's just a wonderful, he's such a wonderful mechanism for reflection. The way in which he conducts his interviews, he doesn't talk about the film or the subjects of the film in between filming. Like, he'll talk about, his favorite languages and the book he's reading, but that's kind of like sacred space, the real-time story. So everything you see is the very first shot of that scene, and that's the only shot he wants. And it's very targeted, very live, very real. Everything is real, and everything is the first interaction with the person. Then you'll keep that, and there's no reshooting. There's no nothing. It's reality.
So what I do know of Werner Herzog, that sounds very much like, I mean, it's a beautiful story, but it does sound like him. He's such a metaphysical outlook on life. It feels like so much of his work in cinema has been instinctual. He's followed his gut. God knows from what we saw in Fitzgeraldo and the other films that he made, he is a man with a passion for what he does.
Yeah.
And you are too. So the two of you have bonded together. And I just want to let people know your background, a little bit about your background. I just want to make sure I get some of this correct. You've been working with National Geographic.
Yep.
Okavango Wilderness Project. Is that related? It does look like it's
Yes.
somewhat related to
Yes,
all
it
this.
is. I
Yeah.
mean, all of this is the work of the Okavango Wilderness Project. Actually, the National Geographic Okavango Wilderness Project. It's one of the largest programs at the National Geographic Society. We're celebrating a decade together on the Okavango Wilderness Project this year with an article in the magazine in June. And it is, together with National Geographic, in this landscape where we found the ghost elephants, we've discovered over 300 new species to science, never before documented, new populations of endangered species. We're talking about lions and cheetahs and African wild dogs.
Right.
And now the elephants. The DNA samples we've taken from the elephants, incredibly valuable in the puzzle as to not just where they come from and who they are, it's how they were historically connected to other populations of elephants in an Africa that had 10 million elephants in 1900. We have now less than 400,000 elephants on the continent. They were the last piece of the puzzle, the ghost elephants. But
When
yes, all of this is with National Geographic.
when did you fall in love with elephants? When was that moment for you?
I was, as a kid, I've never wanted to be anything else other than an explorer. Me and my brother used to embed ourselves in baboon troops and go wander around in the wilderness with them. I, through that, loved, and as a young adult, to walk with elephants a lot. I found them to be very interactive, especially when you are close to water and associate with water. As soon as I was poling, standing in my dugout canoe in the water, then I'd have elephants approaching me. They see you as kind of part of the water. My brother's terrified of elephants, by the way, and he was as a kid. So that's when he left me, and he stayed with the baboons, and I went with the elephants. My whole life. You see it in the film. Elephants are profoundly linked to humans, not just in our fascination with them, but in our co-evolution in Africa. We grew up here together.
I've read, and I see it in the film, this sense of intelligence, this kind of family structure, social structure that elephants in their elephant behavior. There's so much more. They're so deeper in terms of, yeah, their understanding of the world that we live in, and they do as well. I can't tell you how enthralling it is. And to meet the king and all of that if this doesn't give you a greater appreciation, if when you're watching Ghost Elephants and you don't have a greater appreciation of this civilization that has been around or societies that have been around for thousands of years, who are connected to the land. And I've been saying this a lot in the last few years. What's going to save the planet are indigenous people.
Yes.
And following their examples around the world, you name it, any part of the world you choose to pick, indigenous people know how to live with the world. They know how to live with Earth. And we westernized Europeans and others do not. This is the hope when I meet the king and I see these traditions. Do they make sense to me? No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me if they make sense or not. This is what's been working for them. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to watch.
I mean, when he's talking to it is thousands of years in the landscape, a mythology around the elephants being people at the origin of their people. When he asks the ancestors for permission and then to speak to the elephants so that we can see them, interact with them. He's not talking to someone in the past or the memory of something. He is talking in real time. He's talking directly to the ancestors. They are with him. We use now, what's our work around the elephants? We don't just track elephants up in this source of life landscape. We use traditional leadership and indigenous knowledge as the primary mechanism for protection up there.
Yeah.
When you explain a protected area like Yellowstone, here's a place for the animals, and it's a source, and there's a sink, and biosphere reserve. We've done that with all of the traditional leaders, and the king included. The only question he'll listen to is, I understand that we have our own hunting seasons and sacred areas, and I understand what you're talking about. Like we can talk for days about conservation. He says, how could you possibly protect a place that you can't go? It just doesn't make sense. And you're right. Our technological civilization is not going to be saved by going to Mars. It's, the most endangered human resource on the planet is indigenous knowledge. And by its very nature, traditional land management practices are sustainable because they've been around for thousands of years. They're part of the ecology of the system. Like the Luchazi that you're seeing in the film, they burn that entire forest in a year, and they will do that to optimize the forest, optimize for honey production, optimize for wildlife, to protect peatlands, to clean rivers, a million different reasons. And it is done traditionally at the right time of year for a specific purpose. And that is now the largest intact piece of Miombo woodland on the African continent. It shines from space. You can see it, and it's managed through fire traditionally, with no impacts. That is an interaction that we need to celebrate as a global community. And then you go to the Junkwasi, the master trackers, and they're at the origin of all of us, as we say in the film, genetically, like our closest connection to a founding population. I mean, their mode of life survived ice ages. It's a cataclysm, and
Yeah.
then migrated into the rest of the world. So they know how to do it. We don't. When our cataclysm, whatever it may be, advanced climate change, AI, or nuclear fallout, they're the ones that have the solution as to how to get through that.
The difference is a mindset of conquest or a mindset of cooperation and learning from the land, learning from your environment as opposed to trying to conquer it.
That's it. That's it. Explorers. I'm a
Yeah,
National Geographic Explorer. Explorers 100 years ago, okay, even 60 years ago, it was about conquest. Okay, you're conquering a mountain, finding a place to own it, and its resources, and finding something, so and mapping it to own it. That's what the map was about. So it was about conquest. And I've seen in modern exploration, and especially 21st century exploration, we've gone full circle, kind of back to where we started. We're going to these indigenous communities to learn from them. And
exactly.
exploration has become about curiosity, not conquest.
Yes.
And we're trying, and it's kind of, we've gone through this horrible journey, quite destructive in places, conquering the world. And now the curiosity has brought us back to the source. And it's not too late. It is very late, where there's so few healers remaining, so few master trackers across all of the indigenous communities around the world, people that are, connected to language, culture, tradition, and those extraordinary skills. There are not many left.
No, next time you see Kui, am I saying that correctly? Kui,
Yes, we.
give him a hug for me. All
No, I
right.
will. I will. I talked to him last week. He's good at his homestead, Glenwe in Nai Nai. He's wonderful.
I also want to point out some of the other things. You were a founder and chairman of the Wild Bird Trust and Wilderness Project, and a senior research fellow at Fitzpatrick Institute of African Ornithology, and you're author of books and TED Talk speaker and storyteller, and now filmmaker. Steve Boyce, thank you for this beautiful film. And also give Werner a hug for me too, as well. While you're at it,
I saw
for
a few
his
days ago. Give him a big hug. But next time I see him, I'll give him a hug for you.
all
Thanks,
right,
Mike.
very very good. The film is called Ghost Elephants. It is currently on National Geographic streaming. Thank you very very much for your time, Steve Boyce. I really appreciate the film, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mike.
You have been listening to Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar, the place where you will hear from the best in independent documentary and foreign filmmakers. Please check out our previous interviews as well as upcoming interviews and special programming by going to cinemaphilepod.com. We are also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, searchable under Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar. Until next time, thank you for listening.